Hello everybody, I am Thodora Philcox. This is my colleague Elouise Huxor, both from the Open University in in engineering and pedagogy. What we're going to talk about today, as you can see, is our postcard project, which we have been developing over the last couple of years or so, to try and develop a great sense of belonging in an online learning situation and to combat the isolation through postcard. As we go through, we'll show more examples of these. Before we go off this first slide, this is the first one that students receive at the very beginning of their course, about a week or so before they actually start, and it gives them a heads up of what's coming up in their week of study and as a welcome, basically, for the course. So the reason we started it was we noticed that retention had been decreasing quite alarmingly over the last few years. We had some bonus years, bumpy years during the pandemic, but retention has started to go down. And the module that we were focusing on was a level 1 module, very big module, 800 students or so. Again, that has gone down in the last year. But looking at the comparisons with the faculty average over on the right, in 2020, 48.4 students completing. By 2021, it had gone down to just under 52%, which was really quite poor. The faculty average is 72.4, we were 20% lower, and we weren't happy with that. It's not good. So we were comparing our level 1 module with other level 1 modules of a similar size in engineering and innovation. And we were trying to analyse what it was that was different about ours, because ours is a very quirky module. It's got a lot of practical stuff in it. It's a design module, and it is now, but it wasn't devoted to a particular degree pathway. So the environment pathway, they had a degree in environment, so the students were motivated in environment and where are other ones?
In terms of the slides, they can't hear.
They can't hear. Okay, I'll try.
Yeah.
I'll look there. Being a teacher. So yeah, the other level 1 ones had dedicated degree pathways, whereas ours was fed by a lot of other degree pathways. So we'd get business students, we would get arts and humanities students, music students, computing, and ones who were coming on the open degree programme. So it was very mixed. They didn't necessarily have the motivation to think, we've got to do this because this is our degree. It was more like, that looks quite interesting, we'll give it a go. So we thought maybe that's why we might have lost a few, because they came for different reasons rather than thinking this is what our degree is all about. They were recruited for a wide range, basically. At the beginning of 2022, we, Elouise and I, as module leaders, we decided to run this pilot project for 13 out of our 42 groups. We have 20 students so in a group, and we were trying to see what we could do in a small way that didn't involve too much input from tutors and ourselves, to make the tutors have contact with their students at least once a week. That might not sound an awful lot, but the way that the module is constructed is that they might not actually have a contact with their tutor for 4 to 6 weeks, even the way the assignments are spaced out. So we wanted to increase that engagement with the group at least once a week. And we decided to do it by sending out digital postcards. We thought that's a friendly way of doing it, because it's a design-based module, it's very visual. So we wanted to get bite-sized information in a very visual way. It be sent out every week. The students are kind of prompted of what's coming up in the module materials, and also to any module might have or tutorials, and then a couple examples. We wanted it to be a pilot because we wanted to be able to see whether it had an effect, because if everybody got it, we wouldn't know whether suddenly we got some amazingly engaged students. So we thought we would target 13 groups, and we chose them from every so that we didn't have maybe a collection of students in a very white privileged area or whatever. We wanted to make sure it was spread throughout the whole of the UK. So areas of digital poverty or other areas were represented. And Elouise and I created the postcards. We felt that was fair to the tutors. We didn't want to give them extra work. And it also gave a certain levelling of what the postcards might look like. They all look very different, but it's our control, if you like, not being in control, but it was a controlled experiment. So we wanted the tutors to send them out. So we didn't send them out ourselves. We sent them to the tutors, and then the tutors sent them to their group. So the students got the sense that it was a communication from their tutor, and that's what we felt was important, to create this sense of belonging with their tutor. We didn't put any new information on the postcards. It was just what was in the module materials. We had an advantage to any of the students in these 13 groups. Well, it wouldn't be fair if it gave them more juicy information than the others got. So no academic advantage. So we've got some examples here. As you can see, there's lots of visual material on there. We had examples of prior students' work. We had some stimulating images to give them some inspiration for what they might be designing. They had the key level. So there was material that the students would be looking at. It was to kind of remind them and aid memoirs. The deadlines most definitely were there to make them be on point when they needed to hand in their assignments. We also made sure that the postcards went in the body of the email, and we felt this was really important, so the students didn't have to click any things. If it was there in front of them, they wouldn't think, oh yeah, there's another postcard email, we're not going to bother to look at that. So we made sure it was in their faces when they opened the email. We sent them out blind copies so that we complied with GDPR. And we encouraged the students to send a friendly message with the postcard saying, hi, hope you've had a good week, hope you're not too cold, how are you getting on with your assignment? So there was that little bit of communication with their group. We made sure they looked different. So even though there was that sense of control in how we could give them, some looked quite vintage, some looked quite modern, we had different types of typography on them. So the students again wouldn't see them as walking. They would be like, oh, there's another one they would look forward to, we hope, to walking the same. And we tried to make them inclusive in terms of different countries or whatever. We'd have the postage stamps, maybe representing different countries. We'd also put them in if there was an event like the coronation, the World Cup, Christmas, Easter. So it had some relevance as to what was happening in the world at that time. And what it was showing to us, what was important was the contact rather than the content. So the content was, we thought very carefully about what was in it. But it was that weekly contact with us. So I'm now going to hand over to Elouise, and she's going to talk about the impacts that it had.
Very much, Theo. So we surveyed our tutors midway through the pilot project, which is the beginning of the academic year 2022. So we surveyed our tutors in March 23. And what was really important to us, because in terms of the Open University, our tutors look after a tutor group of 20 students, but they work in a very disparate way with distance learning. So they're based all over the country. So they don't come together as a collective as you would do in a more traditional environment. So we surveyed our tutors, and what was really important to us is that we didn't add to workload. Lecturers, we've all got quite big workloads, and we really didn't want to add to their workload, but we wanted something that was going to be really enriching. So we asked 5 simple questions. How many minutes is the project taking? Have you received any feedback? Because it's our first opportunity to get some feedback to how the students were sort of responding. Have you noticed any difference in engagement? And also, what do you think the relationship is, and if it changed about the relationship? And we also asked for some additional comments. Now, we surveyed our tutors in March 23, but subsequently we've gone on to survey them a couple more times and speak to them, and also hold a focus group. So out of, we had 13 groups, only 12 of the tutors responded. That's what one of ours was a little bit out of time for this survey. But really helpfully, 10 of the tutors, 10 of the 12 said it was taking them under 15 minutes to send these postcards out. So the time that was being sent really was us sending every week the postcards to our tutors, and then they would assemble, as Theo said, the email. Now, sort of one tutor said 16 to 20 minutes and the other said 20 to 25, but they followed that up in free text to say that's because I was replying to students, and I've kind of included that in my conversation. So we were really pleased that actually what we hoped was it was going to be an intervention that wasn't going to take up much of their time, but this really confirmed that actually it wasn't adding a lot of time. And I probably should say for these 13 tutors that took part, they did get a small payment sort of going through that pilot. So these are some of the responses that we had. We've picked only 4 sort of responses, but actually overwhelmingly, these were the type of responses, not only that we received in this survey, but actually in the subsequent surveys. So these 4 comments I think are very important. So they're more inclined to make contact after the receipt of the postcard. So that was something that we really hoped that it would be an instigator. And one of the other comments, yes, it seems to be working as a nudge in that students often reply to the email with questions about the work. And that was really nice to see that it was maybe a nudge and an instigator, because at the Open University, of course, we're working at a distance, and for some of our students, it's still quite a faceless environment, and to email a tutor sometimes takes quite a lot of courage for some of those students. So having that nudge and that hope really made us really very happy that that was working in the way that we hoped. One of the other comments that I'd just like to read out, I like that it's made me send a weekly email out with this card where I'm a bit more chatty and describe my plans for the weekend. And this has had my regulars respond positively. And this is something that we had from all of our tutors, that they really like that opportunity to be chatty with students. And I think as an educator, actually, when you're emailing your students, you're thinking about, okay, how can I encourage them with module material, or give them some advice about the lead up to their assignments, etc. But maybe we don't have that chatting sort of messaging with those students in the same way. So it was really nice to hear that there was that opportunity, again, that instigator. And both Thea and I have also been tutors on this module. And I think we felt exactly the same, that opportunities maybe to be a little bit more chatty. It was a really nice environment where perhaps you wouldn't have done it in quite that way before. Another thing that I think was a little bit unexpected for us was the final comment on this page. It makes my comment with them current, and it reminds me what they should be focusing on that week. Good for me and good for them. And it was something that we hadn't really anticipated. So said that our modules, this is a 60 credit module, so it runs right across the year from October to the end of May. And they use a weekly planner. So our virtual learning environment, every week they've got a planner. And then all the module materials are contained within that. And of course, when you first start tutoring on the module, you go through that VLE, you've got a really good idea of those materials. But of course, once you're a tutor that's really familiar with that material, you probably don't dip in all the time. And so that was really nice and unexpected, but it was reminding our tutors actually where their students, exactly where they were. It was a really nice pinpoint for them. A few more responses here. So one, it's very easy to pass on the completed postcards. It's offering noticeable rewards, very little impact on my time, so keep them coming. And I think that was something that we heard time and time again from our tutors. It's nice because it's not really taking a lot of our time. They also talked about our tutor group forums, and through the Open University, that's a mechanism for student interactions that we've used really, going back many years. Things like WhatsApp groups, etc. They're becoming less populated. So as tutors, they don't see those interactions between student peer to peer as regularly as perhaps they used to. So that was something again that we hadn't expected, where tutors were saying it's opened up that channel again for us, which was quite nice. Another unexpected benefit was a comment we received, which again was repeated by quite a few of our tutors. It's a lovely and considered initiative. I look forward to the postcards myself. And again, because at a distance environment institution, all of our tutors are based all over the country. They don't come together as a group. So actually we forget that it's quite lonely for them in terms of teaching. And certainly when we did our focus group as well, it was something that they said it made them feel part of the team. So as well as making our students feel part of that group and team, it actually was having a really positive benefit on our tutors. We also did a mid-pilot survey with our students. We had 33 responses out of the pilot group. There was 171 students in those groups at the time. So we had a 19% response rate. In reality, it's a bit higher than that. We get what's called passive withdrawals, where students are still on the course, but they're not actually actively participating. So it would have been a little bit higher than that. So we were quite pleased with that, because when we have a module survey, actually sometimes we get between 6 and 10% of students responding. So that seemed quite a good result for the survey. We were very clear that the survey came from the tutors, so that was quite encouraging, but that the results would be anonymous. We didn't want tutors were reading the results and having that influence. So 91% of students reported that they read the postcards each week, and 76% of them reported that the postcards encouraged them to contact their tutors. So we felt that was really promising. And we do know, and as I was saying before, that sometimes that initial sort of contact with their tutors can be quite difficult for some of our students. So that was really encouraging. We also did a data collection analysis from tutorial attendance. So in terms of how the module works, we have tutor group tutorials where it's just for the tutor group with their tutor. We also have a module-wide programme, pretty much a weekly programme, and that's an enhancement to the module. So we're taking practical-based topics and presenting them at the module. So anyone on the module up to sort of 800 odd students can turn up to that. In reality, sort of, we probably get about 50 students. But we really wanted to encourage attendance to that. It's really enhancing things, as it's a design module. It was things like prototyping, it was how to sort of design with PowerPoint, using colour, etc. So it's a really nice programme to add to their studies. And we're still doing some analysis with the data, but there was certainly lots of evidence that a higher proportion of those students in the pilot group, where they're being reminded to attend sessions, were actually coming. So these are some of the student responses. So it does help me a lot. It gives me information and understanding about what to do next and what is expected from me to do. They have a positive impact. I feel guided in my studies and motivated. And although I'm using some responses from our pilot, we have subsequently surveyed our students, and this was a really overwhelming response, that it was very positive and that it was about being guided with studies. And I think one comment that's on here: in previous modules, I didn't hear from my tutors at all. It's nice to get that weekly email. Actually, at the Open University, as Theo was saying, you hear from your tutors at assessment time, either in a tutorial, obviously you see your tutors there, or assessment time, when we give very detailed feedback, written feedback. But actually, during the actual life of the module, there isn't that much interaction. So we were getting comments about how positive it was, that interaction. Received in the whole pilot and subsequent survey, we only received one comment that really gave us food for thought, and that's the one at the bottom. No, they made me feel anxious, and if I'm slightly behind schedule, and that. So that was something that was really important to us to take into account, and I go on to the next page. The same student also said, I would have liked to have been able to opt out, and it didn't work for me. Nice idea. That was a really good prompt. So subsequently, when we rolled this out further, that's something that tutors gave the students an option at the beginning, sort of 3 weeks in, and then subsequently, if people wanted to opt out. To date, we haven't actually had any opt out. And then we had some really nice suggestions, and I think the other one that really made us think was about a vertical postcard for using a mobile phone. And we've subsequently done testing with mobile phones, iPads, etc., as well as looking at them on the computers to check readability. So implementation analysis, I know we're a bit short for time now. So they've now been fully implemented. So we run module U101. We run it twice a year. We run it for our October students and also for our February students. So they've now become a permanent feature, and we've built it into our tuition strategy. So tutors are given a little bit of time each week so that they can carry this out. We're also going to do a thematic analysis, because we're in the closing stages, although it will continue in the module. We're in the closing stages of this as a project for analysis. So we're using NVivo, and we're writing at the moment. It's an internal report that will be shared in the summer. So impact, obviously, that's the important thing. How's it made an impact? And we know in terms of those soft responses that we've received, that it's made an impact to those students, and it's really helped them, and it's helped build that relationship and that feeling of belonging with their tutors. But did it have an impact also? So during the pilot, it actually, when we got our completion figures, it was above 2.3%. And that was a really positive indicator, because as Theo showed, we'd actually been losing students who'd gone down a trend right across sort of probably the last 5 or 6 years. We've noticed a trend of decrease. So to have it not only sort of stop that trend, but be positive was really good. It was rolled out fully for 2023, October 2023, and then we saw a further increase of 2.2%. But even more promisingly, for our February cohort that started in 2024, we actually saw an increase of 10.6%, and we think that's as students, as the tutors got really used to sending them out and type of material, things that maybe put in their emails, etc. So we saw that as a real positive. And we've also, we collect data throughout the year. We've already seen that for our October cohort and our February cohort, we're seeing an increase in retention. We have disseminated this mainly internally across our faculty and the university, but we've also, including RIDE, but we've also disseminated it at external conferences. So I just wanted to end with quote I think really sums up the project. In a weird way, the consistent communication takes away the part of the loneliness that comes with distance learning. And for us, it's brilliant that we've seen that rise in retention, but actually it's made a difference to how the students feel and interact with them. We can see that as important. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. We have a few minutes left now for questions. Anybody got any questions for? Yes, please.
Do you think it was something specifically about doing it by email that had the impact? So I work at the University of London Worldwide, and we're kind of being urged to do our contact through the VLE rather than kind of direct emails. But you think it was something about that they could reply directly? The VLA messages come through to people's emails, but then they've got to kind of log in, and it's a few extra steps.
Yeah, I think we have the same thing where we have a facility where tutors do email students, but it comes as part of the VLE. And although you do get the replies, it doesn't in a personal way, it comes across as an institutional email. Whereas this, it's obviously still coming from the tutor's university address, but it's much more personal. And one thing that we've heard, not only through our project, but research that's been done across the university, is that tutor interaction. When students see something from their tutor, they take notice. And if it's something more general, they'd maybe flick through it a little bit. So we do think that's been a positive. Thanks.
Don't have any questions online, so we can come to you. Yeah.
So firstly, I was just going to say, really love the postcards. I think they're amazing, and it's making me want to do your course also. I just wondered how much time it took you two to make those postcards, because that's 52 of them. They look really great, really creative, beyond probably what a lot of us could do. So I just wondered about the time frame for that.
We're going to do 31, not 52. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
We have to change all the dates and things like that, so it's a constant revision of it. It did take us the first time around about one evening postcard. I'm a graphic designer, so it was fun. Yeah, it was fun to do, and it was nice to actually do something creative and do it for our students and feel like it was a positive thing to do. But yeah, that initial bit of work was significant, but we have also thought about using our interns. Some other STEM courses have taken up the initiative, and they've got their interns work on postcards to go on their websites about women in engineering or science or whatever. So the postcard becomes a vehicle in a very nice visual way that looks a bit designery. So we would think or hope in the future we might be able to get either other tutors involved or our interns, so that they get a sense of ownership.
Do you think you're going to keep updating them though, or is that?
I think so, because I get a bit bored looking at them.
Then the tutor engagement might get down.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much indeed, thank you.
You think